My name is Scott Taylor, and I work at the Birmingham Business School here. And my current job title is Reader in Leadership and Organisation Studies. So that means that my specialist area of research is management, organisation, and leadership. So what interests me about this election is the ways in which leadership is being promoted by two parties in particular, the Conservative Party and the Labour Party. The Lib Dems and the Greens and the SNP seem less concerned with leadership at the moment for some reason, so I won't talk so much about them. This started on the day that the Prime Minister, Theresa May, called the election during her 6 or 7 minute speech that day, standing outside number 10 Downing Street in London, which is obviously a really significant symbol of leadership in itself. She referred, I think, 4 times to the fact that she thinks, the Conservative Party believes, that this country needs strong and stable leadership. And that phrase has become one of the most prominent hashtags of this campaign, and its use has been tracked by a range of different news media. And there's been quite a lot of satirical commentary on the repeated use of this phrase from specific journalists and news media. Now, I'm not really so interested in the mechanics of political slogan making, but what I am interested in is the implicit and explicit message of this idea of strong and stable leadership. So there are 3 aspects of it which I think are really interesting. The first thing is the promotion of leadership as a solution. And this is something that we're prone to in politics, but also in public sector organisations and in private sector organisations. If and when we run into a problem of any kind, very often we tend to look to leaders, or we look for leadership, or we make a case for better leadership. Now, all of these things imply that an individual, one single person in the position of leader, can make a substantial difference to an incredibly large and complex organisation or social entity. Now, this is obviously true. Leaders do make a difference. Leaders take their followers in different directions depending on their beliefs or the data that they have to act on. But the veneration of leaders in this way and the promotion of a single individual as a change maker or a difference maker is intrinsically problematic when you're dealing with, in the case of the UK, a politician, the Prime Minister, has to claim to lead more than 60 million people. That's just impossible. The second thing that's interesting about the idea of strong and stable leadership, in particular coming from the Conservative Party, is what it implies about the other parties. So every political message contains within it its opposite, or its other, as some academics say. So when Theresa May promotes herself and the Conservative Party as providing strong and stable leadership, she implies and suggests that all of the other parties and all of the other leaders will provide weak and unstable leadership. Now, this is clearly something which has been identified by the Conservative Party as a plausible message in making a case to vote Conservative. So they may have looked around, they may have run focus groups which identified, for example, Jeremy Corbyn or Tim Farron as being identified with less strong leadership than Theresa May in the Conservative Party, or more unstable leadership or party organisation. So in that sense, it's always worth, I think, with leaderly messages of this kind in politics in particular, to ask what the implicit or other message within the slogan is. The third thing that's really interesting about the idea of strong and stable leadership for me, speaking as someone who does a lot of research on feminism in contemporary workplaces, is the implication again that strong and stable leadership is coming from a woman, Theresa May. We've seen this already with Margaret Thatcher in the 1970s and 1980s in the UK, when she was characterised as the Iron Lady, and she was often described as being more masculine than many of the men in the Conservative Party at that time. Now, it seems to me that this is a direction that Theresa May and the Conservatives have decided to continue and to extend, even though the Conservatives are the only party to have provided a woman Prime Minister in the UK. They have a relatively poor record on increasing the diversity of rank-and-file MPs. Labour Party have done much more in this respect in implementing all-women shortlists and quotas for MP selection processes. So the Conservatives have decided to suggest that even though they have a woman Prime Minister, even though they seem to be very proud of that, they still want to maintain a sense of masculinity in the leadership that they're promoting to the country at the moment. Now, it's an interesting choice because it implies that the alternative to a masculine leader is not as credible to voters, and it also implies that the other party leaders, the other potential prime ministers, are less masculine and therefore less worth voting for. So the idea that when we think leadership we have to think man or we have to think masculine is something which, again, I think is worth questioning in this election process. So those are the three things that I would say are important just in terms of my research field, which is leadership studies.